October 12th. Israel is the first destination of U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken on his Middle East tour. He met with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, President Isaac Herzog, as well as with the members of the Israeli government. In a statement to the press, Blinken emphasized that as a Jew, he is personally touched by what is happening in the country, and also informed that the supply of military aid has already begun.
With regard to the second front, as I mentioned earlier, it's our determination and that of Israel as well, that there not be a second front or a third front. And we are working as hard as we can, working with other partners in the region to try to ensure that that's the case.
After his visit to Tel Aviv, Blinken visited the West Bank administration, where a significant number of Palestinians live. As Western media write, this territory can become a second front. There, the Secretary of State held talks with the head of the Palestinian National Authority, Mahmoud Abbas, and then he went to Jordan to meet with King Abdullah II.
This is an attempt by the American administration to return to its Middle East policy, which practically did not exist. In Washington, in the White House, they realized that it was necessary to include diplomacy with other important players in the Middle East, include such important countries as, for example, Jordan, which has long had diplomatic relations with Israel, but at the same time, of course, cannot openly side with Israel in the fight against the Palestinian movement.
Qatar is the first country of Blinken's extended tour list. Earlier, Emir Tamim ibn Hamad Al Thani stated that the state would stop gas supplies to the world if Israel continued to shell the Gaza Strip. Upon arrival in the capital Doha, the Secretary of State said, in particular, that work was underway in cooperation with Israel to create safe zones for civilians.
We've discussed with the Israelis and urged the Israelis to use every possible precaution to avoid harm to civilians. We mourn the loss of every innocent life, Israeli, Palestinian, Jew, Christian, Muslim, as well as civilians of every faith and every nationality who've been killed.
Blinken continued to highlight the problem of Hamas' war against Israel and call for its solution in Bahrain. There he met with Foreign Minister Abdulatif bin Rashid Al Zayni. And then he went to Saudi Arabia. Before arriving, as the BBC Russian service writes, Riyadh sharply criticized Israel, not Hamas.
Without a concerted effort to end this constant return to violence, it will always be the civilians that suffer first. It will always be civilians on both sides that end up paying the price. So I hope that we can find a way to de-escalate the current situation and then hopefully move forward to a more permanent solution. So thank you again for coming, Tony, and thank you for all your work.
Each country has its own stories, its own agenda, and in fact, Blinken recalls that America has some kind of relationship with these countries. Once they were frozen, now they're being thawed. And in general, Blinken comes and asks for understanding of Israel's actions, not support for Hamas, and of course, not entering the war on the side of Hamas. At least isolate Hamas to some extent, promising that the Americans will put pressure on the Israeli government, rather so that there will not be a too bloody, massive and protracted war in the Gaza Strip.
The United States now must maneuver well between its allies in the Middle East. According to experts, this is due to the fact that the goals of the warring parties are mutually exclusive. Israel wants to demonstratively punish Hamas, and the Arab countries want to protect the population of the Gaza Strip. Reported by Pavel Stelmach, Mikita Skoblikov, UATV News.